UK holidays should be absolutely class. We're an island nation, Rastafari. No matter where you're standing, you're less than 70 miles away from the sea, which is better than Spain. We're like Barbados, but with Turtle Bay, Stephen Mulhern and a marginally worse English literacy rate. We've got Brighton, Blackpool, Cornwall, Centre Parks, Butlins, loads of places where you can get scoliosis and have a nice little shiver. But it's always been popular to have a go at Benidorm. People will say it's full of skin cancer and brown sauce, or it all went downhill when they started phasing out Madge in Series 7. But the most common criticism is simply, why even bother leaving? You can do all that in England. But can you actually? I'm here to make the case that, really, if you're looking for a truly British holiday in the way God intended, get down to Dorm. Benidorm's been about since 1325, but it was the 1960s when a fleet of Trojan EasyJets managed to claim it as an unofficial British overseas territory. Famous residents include Sticky Vicky and Frank the Stagman, the sort of Ronaldo and Messi of jelly shots and whatever crack sack and wax stitch-up is. My main point here is that if people could have a British holiday at home, then they would, but they can't. And luckily, Spain has been kind enough to concede this part of their country without even asking for anything in return. Like, we could just fling them Skegness, but they don't want it. 74% of Benidorm's visitors are British, and the other 26% are presumably Scouse or something. Benidorm has over 2,000 pubs, which is 60 pubs per square kilometre, or one for every 4 mobility scooters. For some reason, British media have always been obsessed with it, with shows like Benidorm ER, 24-hour party pensioners, bargain-loving Brits in the sun, fun-loving Brits in the sun, and basically any combination of sun, Brits, fun, booze, injuries and law-breaking. But Benidorm is more than that. It's the original forward-thinking holiday destination. It was the first city in Spain to legalise bikinis after a fella called Pedro rode his Vespa for 8 hours to Madrid to get approval from Franco himself. Now there's a man committed to tits, I mean freedom. As a result of the influx of tits, an erection occurred. The massive cross on the Sierra Helada was knocked up in 1962 by a bishop hoping God would be watching over the supposedly sinful resort. God was also a massive fan of 24-hour party pensioners. Benidorm's also environmentally conscious. It has more skyscrapers per inhabitants than any other city in the world, mainly to protect green spaces and also presumably to escape bean waft. But the point is, I do think it's slightly unfairly slagged off, especially as UK holidays in the way they were meant to be initially are currently dead. In my opinion, mate, freedom of speech, enough said. Look, I'm not going to be clever about it, it's just rubbish and weirdly expensive, and if I wanted to compete with a bird for a donut and flirt with your dad. Cod's more common in the south, haddock's more common up north, and mental health issues are more common in the Midlands, but generally, without paying a fortune, fish and chips doesn't get better the closer you get to the sea. It's all been caught around Norway and then travelled further than you have, which I suppose is fair enough, because if we use local catch by local people, we'd end up eating a battered Asda trolley and chips. Here's a world-famous mega-celebrity doing his best to pretend to enjoy ordinary things like eating a wet fish. It's not just Scandinavian fish and fried balls of vegetable oil in our national dish wheelhouse. We've also got the 99. I was struggling to find data on the price change of a 99, to be honest. I wasn't sure if anyone in the media had ever reported on that kind of thing before. But luckily, the Daily Mail have managed to get an exclusive that ice cream is more expensive nowadays, and it's probably the fault of Meghan Markle and remote working. I wonder if anyone's ever tracked information on like Freddo prices over the years. I bet they've gone up as well. Bet no one tracks it though, that'd be way too wacky. All in all, I don't think it's surprising that people, or gravy-guzzling Brits in newspaper speak, are headed to the Yorkshire Pride in Benidorm for a roast for £6.87. It can't be much worse, and it's probably just as British anyway. Back in the 19th century, UK resort towns were the business. They became popular around the time some absolute genius invented paid annual leave, and as people discovered getting in the sea was good for your health, like smoking, cocaine and heroin. They were knocking up hotels, piers, arcades, and everyone had a good time shuffling a few hoogs and shitting themselves about an impending world war. But the world moved on. Blue Raz came in and hotels, piers and arcades just don't hit the same. The thrill of NOS canisters has replaced ghost trains, and locals prefer games such as let's all move to different places for employment opportunities instead of the humble coin machine. I should say, I'm not saying you can't still have a good time in Blackpool, Scarborough, East Anglia, Brighton, etc. Of course you can, it's just that they're not in their prime anymore. Blackpool isn't the only place you can go for a bingo hall and a dreadful football team, and Brighton has become more of a day trip for high-income Londoners. Margate is unfortunately full of graphic designers. Not to mention the obvious, that even if the glory days were still in place, the weather's unreliable and it's cheaper to go elsewhere, but I'm not going to do a whole section on that because good lord. The Pavilion in Brighton was originally made for King George IV as sort of like an OG Soho house with more sex and less performative journaling, while Blackpool's Palace Theatre, which is basically an old-timey mega prism, is now just a Poundland. I sort of feel like our culture at times is just museums that used to be cooler things. What the fuck is a hippodrome? They sound absolutely mental, but I've only seen them as abandoned ruins near a kebab shop. Bring back hippodromes. Beach full of poo, mate. In 2023, the amount of domestic sewage in English waters more than doubled, with groups like Surfers Against Sewage particularly not stoked about it, arguing that riding waves of diarrhea is actually not gnarly at all, with some, on their super rad LinkedIn page, even going as far as describing the situation as totally bogus. In 2024, water companies in England discharged untreated sewage for 3.61 million hours, which is the equivalent of having a single pipe constantly releasing pure shit for 412 years straight, which is longer than Robbie Williams. We all know the UK is full of plastic and wet wipes, but with 127 plastic items recorded per 100 metres of UK beach, and 63% of all UK beaches containing wet wipes, it's worse than we thought. Look, this is the boring one. Earlier I said I wouldn't do a money section, but people lie and you're going to have to sit through it because sometimes bad things happen to good people. So I'll go easy on the numbers, but let's say you're in, I don't know, Basingstoke and you want 5 nights in a hotel in the UK. You're looking at roughly $1,000 for Skegness, $1,500 for Norfolk, or over $2,000 for Centre Parks, where you'll be eating £20 curry next to a mortgage advisor. And also, they're rarer than they were, but you can still get return flights to Europe for about 20 quid, which is just £57.80 when you factor in 6 carlings at the Beehive. Long story short, in 10 years, train prices have gone up, hotel prices have gone up, and that's bad news for people that prefer cheap access to an Artex ceiling, and good news for Frank the Stagman. But if you are willing to pay a bit more, the solution for many is Cornwall. I'm not slagging it off, I'm just saying it's not a proper English holiday. It's got its own sort of thing going on involving fat face, a housing crisis, and blokes called Rupert rubbing surf wax on a bodyboard. There's no football team there, they're talking about independence, they've got their own language, they're banging on about jam and stuff, and they've got a flag that they've nicked from a Ginsters packet. It's like, once you get to this part of the country, it's just the Wild West, and it gets madder as you go on. The first warning sign on your way down should be Gloucester Services, which in my opinion is an affront to everything that makes our country so great. There's no KFC, no decaying little chef, no depressing little gambling area, just a farm shop in case you want to pick up a wheel of cheese or an artisan bowl while looking at an on-site beehive. Anyway, what I'm saying is Benidorm isn't directly competing with Cornwall or North Wales or the Highlands or whatever. They're all cool, but you know, Jason Statham and Stanley Tucci and all that aren't cutting about in Cornwall because they don't like the soup of the day at the Loch Ness Fun Pub. I suppose now would be a good time for some kind of summary to this migraine-inducing gibberish, so I'll play a new jingle for you so you don't have to suffer that one for the 6th time. I've been harsh on UK holidays. I've said the food's dead, the sea's pooey, resort towns are changing and the prices are too high, because let's be fair, it wouldn't be very funny if I banged on about how lovely everything is. But look, I've had some great times on UK holidays, and so did this world-famous mega-celebrity this very weekend.
Stop being such a miserable twat.
And maybe he's got a point, but the whole you can do all that at home stuff, I think it's only partly true for all the reasons I was moaning about. It's not for everyone, but I feel like we actually do need places for people to affordably smash a load of pints, watch football and dive off a balcony. And sure, maybe the police shouldn't have had to have introduced mobility scooter drunk driving fines, but I get it. Let's ease off Benidorm a bit is another admittedly mild take from me. Anyway, as I said in the last one, I'm working on an album, and in the meantime I'm enjoying making these so I can still chat a load of wibble and have something to post. Like, subscribe, all that stuff, and we've hit 8 minutes, so with a bit of luck I can finally pay the Switch 2 bill.